Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Sunshine Cathedral Christians and Cocktails. It's Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and it must be time for Christians and Cocktails. Just the quick PSA to get them out of the way. Monday through Saturday, we invite you to join us on Facebook for midday prayer. That happens every day, Monday through Saturday at noon. Then on Wednesday, it is Share in the Chair with the senior minister and a guest. And I believe this week's guest is Reverend Kathleen
Kathy
Beasley.
Beasley.
Beasley, you don't want to miss that one. She's awesome. And then, of course, on Saturday, there at 12:30, it's Just a Thought with Darrell and Cindy Lippert. And, of course, on Sundays, you can join us for in-the-room worship at 9 and 10:30 a.m. Reservations and masks are required. And, of course, the 10:30 service is live broadcasts on Facebook as well as YouTube. But for this moment, here we are with you, and you are with us, and I'm with this wonderful panel, and they're all ready to have beverages, and something just happened to one of my panelist people.
People are disappearing.
Wow, is the rapture happening already? Okay, so maybe that's one of the questions for tonight.
Sam went and Margarita didn't. Isn't that funny?
Wow. All righty then. Well, as soon as they bounce back, we'll let them back into the holies of holies, and we'll keep going. But for now, again, thank you for joining us for Christians and Cocktails. Our safe word for tonight, or our drinking word for tonight, is going to be disappearance. How's that? So hopefully no one else will disappear tonight. So when we disappear in scripture and disappear in love, whatever we have, we hopefully will come back and we'll keep going from there. But for now, we're going to go ahead on and move on. And we will let Sam and Tara back in when they rejoin us. We're going to make them sing when they come back. But anyway, for now, Darrell, let's get started.
All right, Christians and Cocktails. That's where we have questions. Some of them have come from the panelists. Some of them have come from viewers. Some of them have come from friends. We just keep adding them to the pile and draw them sort of randomly. We get to them when we get to them, but we don't discard them. We will eventually get to every question ever asked in the history of Christians and Cocktails. So we start out by trying to sort of stump me. Usually I have something to say. The answer may not be right, but I refuse to be stumped. I will say something. I will make something up. I will dance. I will sing. And then everyone else can chime in and they can add their 2 cents or follow-up questions. And also online in the thread, everyone out there can ask a question. If we see it in time, we'll ask it in the discussion. If not, we'll put it in the queue for later. Or you can make comments about what's going on throughout. So totally interactive. Wherever you are, just be part of the conversation. So let's start. Let's see what we have to kick around, and let's begin with Sam. Sam, just back from the rapture. I should have known they would have tossed her back.
Yeah. Reclaiming the rapture. Is that the danger word? Is the rapture the drinking word?
No,
well, I was going with disappearance, but rapture would do just as good.
That's the same thing, right?
Rapture is more likely to come up. So anyway, Sam, kick us off with something.
Okay. You've said you experience God more as a presence than a person. If God is a person, wouldn't that annoy him or her?
The question itself is an argument for God being a presence rather than a person, because yes, a person could be petty. A person could be shallow and egotistic and, you didn't understand me correctly, or you didn't give me enough credit, or, whatever. And so now I'm miffed at you. So yes, a person would be like that, or could be like that. That is not how I understand God. But some people do. Some people do. And some people are actually afraid to even question it. They've had a concept they were taught as a child. They've never moved beyond that concept. And it's sort of scary to them to even consider, because what if God is a person? And what if that person is petty? And what if that petty person will just cut me off because I got something wrong? Because I had a different opinion, because I asked a question that wasn't allowed. My whole rebellion against that my whole life is that kind of God is not God enough. I need a God that is truly good. Otherwise, if we're going to be cut off anyway, if we're on our own anyway, why bother with any of that? Let's just work it out. But if God is a presence, and that is my experience, I think the person said, you say you experience God that way, and that is true. That is how I experience God. Other people experience God in different ways, I guess. Some people claim to have no experience at all. They've just given up the idea because they think it doesn't make sense. But my experience is of God as ever present. And my ideas of how that is true are always evolving. If you were to tell me the reason it's true is because it's actually just part of your mind. It's part of the way your mind works out. There's this sacred place in your own buildup, and you just sort of naturally call that divine or whatever. Okay, whatever. I'm feeling it. I'm sensing it. It's with me. If you think, and this is more my line of thinking, that there is one reality, one substance, and so that's what everything is made of. That is what everything is part of. And so God is present because God is all there is. Okay, so now God is a presence. God is the power, the presence, the energy that is everywhere, fully present. That presence is not going to be angry that I took my limited brain capacity and my limited lifespan and my limited skills and tried to work out big questions. It doesn't even matter what the answers I come to are. That presence, and for that matter, a good person, could not possibly be angry that I took what I had, I used what I had, I did what I could to sort of understand things more deeply, whether I got it right or not. So I do experience God as a presence more than as a person, although that presence is personal to me because I personalize it, because I experience it personally. So I tend to personalize God maybe, even though I don't think of God as a person. But that God, the God of my understanding and experience, is not angry, could not be angry with us for trying to figure things out, for trying to understand things more deeply, for taking our search for meaning seriously. So no, not worried about God being angry at all over that, whether I've gotten it right or wrong. And I suspect that we've all gotten it wrong. For God to be ultimate, whatever we come up with has got to be at best partial. It can't be the whole thing. So if you're worried about getting it wrong, relax, because you already have whatever you've come up with. But that doesn't mean you aren't partially true. It doesn't mean that you're not on a life-giving track. It doesn't mean, the elephant, we're all around the elephant and feeling a tusk or a foot or an ear. We're all having a different experience. But none of us have grasped the whole elephant yet. So that's what I think about that. There are so many spiritual seekers and teachers on the panel, though. Let's hear from others.
I actually have a follow-up question real quick that might kind of tie into their answers. So part of the reason that I sort of evolved as a non-religious person was because God in most situations was presented to me kind of as a person, like a father figure, whatever, and that just didn't fit for me. And so I rejected God. But when I think about it now, I really just rejected that idea of God. So do you think that like in rejecting that I've somehow like, because when I tell like my religious family members and stuff that they're like, oh, well, you're gonna get punished or whatever. Like, do you think that by rejecting God all the way because people haven't been exposed to like what God would be, like that they would be sort of damned? Because that's always the thing that I hear,
Yeah, the fire insurance. You better get it right, because that's the fire insurance. Yeah. There are whole religions that refer to ultimate reality as the void, like a capital N nothing, because if God is the all in all, if God is the source and substance of all that is, then God is no thing. God is also everything. And so there are whole religions that refer to ultimate reality as the void, that what is most sacred is the thing you can't put a name or a face on. In Taoism, Tao, the way, is taught that the way that you can figure out isn't the way. The name that you can know isn't the name. And even one of the names for God in our scriptures basically means the unknowable or the unnameable. Yahweh, that which is, isness, being. That is an experience, and the minute you put a picture on it or try to trap it in a name, you have limited isness, beingness to a smaller thing, which is why the name is not to be said. It's why there's to be no graven images. And so if you have come up with nothing, you may be closer to the truth than all the somethings we've come up with. So again, yeah, no, I don't think, and again, God, if God were a person, God would be like grillions of years old. And really, and you know, in a zillion, billion, grillion years, you don't have it more together than that you just have to act out because people aren't sure about you. They don't know your story well enough. Who has time for this God? God has to be better than the best people we know, or let's just stick with the best people we know. But I do think God is better. I mean, God is love, God is presence, God is joy, God is beauty, God is the source and substance of all it is, in my experience and understanding. And even when I put words to that, I have diminished the experience. If whatever you try to explain, the explanation is not the experience. And so, and yet we want to talk about our experiences, and we can only use language, and language is symbolic. And so the limitations of language limit the discussion, and yet there's no other way to have the discussion. So no, you can't. I wouldn't even worry about upsetting God, because every presentation of God we were given didn't measure up. And so either we developed non-theistic understandings like I have, or maybe you just said maybe there is no God. There is such a thing as religious atheist, So yeah, I don't worry about that. And in fact, the people who say I just can't limit ultimate reality to a name or a tradition or a story or a picture, they may be closer to it than all of us.
I sometimes think we try and beat ourselves up for not holding on to the God of our childhood, that we were taught to hold on to, and we beat ourselves up for that. And I'm specifically thinking in Corinthians, where Paul's talking like when he says, when I thought like a child, I spoke like a child, I acted like a child. And for me, I've often applied that to my evolution of understanding who God is or what God is in my life. My childhood God, my childhood Jesus is not my same God or Jesus as I sit here at 50 and some change. So I think
a bit of change.
Disappear. Rapture. Anywho, but no, I think that's, Sammy, you kind of triggered that thought for me about like as we grow, we evolve with our understanding of so many things, and so I think the battle is to as we've often heard Darrell say, we got to not replay those tapes over and over, and at some point we just have to break the tape and evolve into what we're meant to be and what we're meant to understand. And kind of set ourselves free.
I'm learning about me. This is me. I'm me all the time. I live as me, with me, every moment of my life. And there are still things about me that I'm learning, that I'm experiencing, that I'm discovering. If that is true for me and my own skin and my own brain and my own life, to think that you could put whatever God is into a creed or a Bible verse or a list of don'ts, that's just silly. I'm still learning about me. So of course I'm still going to be learning about whatever the source of me is. And so it's a journey, and that we're asking the questions and following the leads. I think that's way more important. I think the questions are way more important than the answers. I feel more badly for people who are scared to ask the questions than for people who never seem to find answers. Well, the answers were secondary anyway. The questions are what propelled the search.
We had a discussion last night on the pastor's porch, and the discussion was, well, we had several discussions. One of the discussions that this brings to mind was about how straight allies, when we had straight allies that were trying to understand gay culture, and they just couldn't get it. But we couldn't be mad at them for trying, but then there would be some people that would judge them for, well, oh, you will never understand. And, But here they are trying. trying to understand. And then, that's kind of how I feel like we are. We're trying to understand. Will we ever fully understand? Maybe not. But we're making that effort. We're trying. We're trying to understand what God is. In each
there's a story by C.S. Lewis where Aslan the lion, the good guy, there's this big battle, and someone who's on the side against Aslan winds up on his side. Like he's felled in battle, and he sort of wakes up and he's with Aslan. And he's like, wait a minute, I was fighting against you. How am I with you now? And Aslan said, you were giving your all for what you truly believed. That's all I could ever ask for anyone. So Aslan showing grace. Aslan, of course, the lion is a symbol for God. No, you didn't get it right, but you never stopped trying to get it right. You were trying to do what was best according to what you knew or what you thought you knew. You gave it your all. You're on my side. You thought you were against me. You thought you were fighting against me, but you can't be against me if you're doing your best and being fully committed. So C.S. Lewis was a pretty conservative lay theologian, an Anglican theologian, but I think he got that right. The search is what's important, and if we are faithful in our search, then that is the faith that redeems us. So that is the faith that assures or claims our sacred value. It's not about getting the answers right. Now, I would go a step further than C.S. Lewis. Even complete screw-ups, they're okay too. I don't think anybody gets left out. But still, the most appealing presentations of the divine are those that are gracious and all-inclusive and loving. Otherwise, why bother? We could just be on our own and scared anyway.
I experience God in different ways at times, never as a person, always as a presence. But sometimes even within myself, sometimes I feel something and I acknowledge that that was God. Or just looking at nature, sometimes I feel this is God. God has made this for me and God is part of it. And sometimes I experience God in that way. So there's many ways that I sometimes experience God, but never as a person and never as a he or she. Usually it's non-binary as they, them, or their. Because since they're not a person, I can't give them a gender.
Yes. Yes.
I think it's just personal for everybody, kind of like you said, Darrell. Like, it's personal, and it's been said before, the Sunshine Cathedral is such a great place because it doesn't force you to put God in a box. It lets you ask the questions and interpret God however works for you. That's liberating.
The story of the golden calf, where Moses is gone and the people get scared, and Moses has been talking about this invisible, nameless God, and now the guy talking about it is gone, so we can't see this God. We don't know this God's name, and now even the person who talks about him has skipped town, and they got scared, and so they build this golden calf. They build a God. They make a God, and we always imagine it might have been a little thing, I don't know, but they make it sound as if it's this big, grand, beautiful, glorious thing. And but no matter how shiny, no matter how glorious, no matter how grand, no matter how skilled the artistry, when Moses gets back and sees it, he's furious and throws a fit. Whenever, no matter how grand, no matter how beautiful, no matter how ornate, when we try to say this is what God is, we have limited God. And when we've limited God, we've limited our search. We've limited our ability to grow. And so, yeah, this God may be beautiful, but because you can put your hands on it, it's not God enough. And so that's the problem with idolatry. And we all have our golden cows. We all have our idols. Sometimes it's the sacraments, and sometimes it's the Bible, and sometimes it's the tradition, and sometimes it's Jesus, and sometimes it's this male image of God. We all have these images, and we insist that we can't get past this image. Well, that's the golden calf. And the journey to the land of promise involves destroying that calf and then moving forward. All right. Margarita, do you have a question for us? I know you do.
I do.
was a silly question on my part. I know you do.
So my question is, do you pray to saints? Why or why not?
Sometimes. Saints for me, I'm not sure that, I don't know how it works. I'm not sure that there's a realm where the saints hang out and they're just waiting for me to, call, and what if I call the same time someone else calls? Do they take the call in the order they were made? I mean, how does it even work? I don't know. But the new age sort of people who do believe in, communicating with angels and saints and spirit guides and whatnot, they say it's all about energy, that they are attracted to the energy you put out when you're calling upon them or whatever. So the energy attracts them, that usually it's not just one, it's usually sort of a team. And so if the head of the team is busy, someone else on the same team, can come and help. I don't know. So I am willing to believe that any and all of that is possible. But at very least, and this is comfortable for me, at very least, these are archetypes. These saints or gods or ancestors or angels or spirit guides or whatever, even if they didn't exist, St. Christopher is the saint, and then he gets, then he's not, but still some people have a devotion to St. Christopher. Whether they existed or not, these figures represent, like they're all a patron saint of something or an angel of something. They represent something. They represent a possibility. They represent healing or hope or joy or love or traveling or, they represent something that is needful, that is true. And so if I'm calling upon the Archangel Raphael for healing, what I'm saying is I believe that there is a power that can heal. And I'm trying to plug into that power. Whether or not there is a Raphael is irrelevant at that point. The same thing, if I pray to St. Jude, for, the patron saint of lost causes or whatever, and I just feel like I don't see any way through this, and yet I believe there must be a way through it. And so, St. Jude, pray for me. Well, I'm affirming faith in possibilities. I'm affirming that even though it looks hopeless, it's not. And that's what's effective. That's what's powerful. So saints represent something useful to me, even if they never existed and even if they are unaware of me, to use them as sort of religious games, to tap into hope and to tap into a power source. That I do find useful. And if, as is the Christian tradition, there is this communion of saints, there is this cloud of witnesses. If they are with us, well, then it can never hurt to ask your friends, the ones you see around and those you can't see anymore, to ask your friends, to pray for you, to wish you well. That at very least doesn't hurt. But the saints for me and other even mythic sort of figures, they represent things, and what they represent are true for me. And so it's a way of me to sort of embrace the hope of what they represent and activate that hope in my own life. So I will sometimes pray to saints. I am not 100% clear on what it really, really means, if there's really somebody on the other side of a veil taking my call. And to me, it doesn't even matter.
I agree with you. I think, I don't use saints as much. I have maybe a few that I have, but not as many. Being Catholic, I probably should have picked up on that, but the angels, I do. But it's the energy. So I really focus on what they represent and what I want to like that energy to be like, and be on that energy level that either our saint represented, like Saint Teresa or Saint Francis, or even I have a beautiful statue of Moses in our prayer room, and that for me is leadership and strength and trust in God. That's really what it represents. It's not about the image, it's just that gives me some hope. So it's about the hope that they give.
In the LDS tradition, there is the angel Moroni, and a very key figure. Apparently, there wouldn't even be the tradition without him. He shows Joseph Smith the stuff that gets it all going. Other than that story, I'm asking Tara. I was thinking about asking everyone but Tara, but no, I'll ask Tara. That's what she grew up with. Other than that story, is there any sort of veneration of the angel Moroni? Does anyone ever invoke the angel Moroni, or do you just sort of tell the story? No?
No, in fact, I've never really understood the praying to the saints thing. I guess,
Well, because you guys were all saints, right?
No, well, it's the Latter-day Saints, but it's not saints as in like the Catholic saints that you would like worship or pray to. I think it just means like we're all good people fighting for a good cause, and so we were considered the Latter-day Saints. But there was never any of that. It was just, in fact, we didn't even pray to Jesus. We prayed to God the Father, and Jesus was a completely separate being. And so I have never understood or identified with like praying to anything other than God. And I appreciate this conversation because I think that does make more sense to me. It's more what the saints represent. Like Margarita said that Moses represents leadership. I don't picture myself praying to Moses, but I can think about Moses when I'm praying and evoke those feelings that Moses beheld. Yeah. And so and that's more what it would be about for me. But there's no tradition along those lines in the Mormon church.
If I had, since I'm 15, I never step on a stage to MC a show or be in a cabaret or be in a play. I've never stepped in a performance role. I've never stepped on the stage without first saying a prayer to St. Genesius, the comedian. St. Genesius is the patron saint of actors and comedians. And if you could prove to me right now beyond question that there was never even a Genesius, if there was never even such a person, I might be a little disappointed, but I worked it out with the Tooth Fairy. I worked it out with the Easter Bunny. Mm-hmm. I would work it out with Genesius, but I would still not saying my little prayer to St. Genesius. It would still, the act of it would still be meaningful to me, and I wouldn't stop.
Well, so I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
Sunday morning when you step foot on the stage, which one is it?
I don't know. St. Genesius is not my Sunday guy. But don't challenge me. I can make him my Sunday guy. Do not make this be a challenge. But no, I spend quite a bit of time on Sunday morning in prayer. But I don't invoke Mr. Genesius. You know what though? If I were going to do something a little creative, a little out of the box, I might would.
It kind of goes back to the last question about offending God. I feel like I'm trying to think why I just would be so uncomfortable praying to a saint or praying to someone other than God. And I think it would be because anything that saint can do, God should also be able to do if I'm praying for something. And so why would I dismiss God by praying to something or someone else? And that's just like the way my mind is like working. But that's about offending God, and that's not really about your experience. So
to me, it's kind of like channeling like a Christian history superhero, right? Like,
okay, now I'm super into it. Now I have to do it.
Because like when you're talking about it, like you want to, like I always think of like, powerful figures from stories or whatever, where I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna, kind of like, get that, like kind of visualization type stuff. And that's kind of what it sounds like, which, yeah.
And the thing about how we navigate problems or difficulties, whatever, the thing that is helpful is the good feeling. Yeah. And so the reason that sometimes I think prayer doesn't work as well as we'd like it to is because if we're begging for forgiveness, if we're begging, please God, help, if you will, if it's your will, if it's, unless it's your, it would serve some great purpose for me to suffer. Like when we're praying that way, that can't feel good. And so we don't have good feeling energy to have an equivalent to attract. And so some people think affirmations raise their energy, make them feel better. So that's good. But if they don't feel like their affirmation is true, now they're feeling dishonest rather than excited or hopeful or joyful. And so the thing that lifts your energy, the thing that lifts your joy, the thing that activates your hope, that's what's going to attract something like itself. And so if praying to the biblical superhero gets you there, if affirmations get you there, if visualization gets you there, if calling upon your ancestors gets you there, it's about the feeling. The feeling is what's going to manifest. And so whatever helps you feel better is going to help you do better and be better. So the thing that makes you feel better is what you should do. If it feels false, if it feels scary, if it feels demeaning, nothing super great is going to come out of that. So whatever feels true, whatever feels comfortable, whatever feels hopeful or joyful. When the Apostle Paul said that to the Philippians, whatever is good, think on these things. And so when we're invoking saints or angels or ancestors or Jesus or the gods of whatever, what we're doing is we're thinking on something good. And if we do that to the point where we feel good, that's going to lead us to something good. So yeah, I never really think you can get much wrong. So pray to saints, don't pray to saints. Because if God is all there is, you're not bypassing God anyway.
Yeah.
I grew up with saints, obviously, because I grew up Catholic also. But my grandmother had an altar of all kinds of saints with candles and all this stuff. And I didn't know who was what and what was who for what for. One was for healing, one was for this, one was for that. I never really learned it, never really paid attention to it, but it stuck, I guess, with my mom because it was her mom. And so to this day, I have a saint that I keep in my car. So this saint is supposed to protect me, one, in case of an accident, that I would be okay. And then I have another saint that my mother had me put in my wallet, which I always have. She always checks. You have that saint in your wallet? So this saint is just supposed to protect me in general. So I keep it just for my mother. But at the same time, I think a part of me kind of believes it too. So it makes me feel comfortable with it and safe. There's also another one that I carry when I travel on a plane, if I go overseas.
Is it like the saint's business card or something? How do you put it in your wallet?
It's a little photo of the saint. And
okay, gotcha.
Well, and it sounds
Got
like
a zipper purse this big.
it sounds like that also reminds you that your mom is looking out for you.
That too.
You know, she's like,
and like Darrell said, it's if it gives you that positive feeling or that feeling of being safe, then that's good. It's kind of like if you get a lucky charm, then that lucky charm makes you feel good that you're gonna have, good luck and everything's gonna go great. So I kind of see it that way now, the little saint thing. I mean, I don't really believe them 100%, but I think there's something good about them. Also on the chat, somebody says, I have always thought of saints as operators, for lack of a better term, who receive our prayers and concerns and help convey them to God. So I guess God's may be busy sometime, and the saints will take a message and make sure God.
Nice. It's nice to have jobs. Nice to have something to do. And a lot of people say, they'll say, my worry about the afterlife is like, what's the point? What will I do? The whole idea about saints is that you'll have something to do. Like you have a purpose. You're going to be looking after people. You're going to be praying for people. You're going to be helping people. Well, that makes it, that to me is so much more exciting than I'm going to be floating on a cloud and playing a harp and, whatever. That snore. Okay, that's going to be fun for 15 minutes. Then what? But if I have purpose, everlasting purpose, that now is exciting. So I do like the idea of saints, sort of having jobs. Because again, whether it's factual or not, it's true in that it communicates that we have purpose, that we have significance beyond this life. And so that's encouraging. So yeah, I love symbols. I love symbols. They as long as they're pointing to something beyond themselves. The minute they point to themselves, they're idols and now they're in the way. But when they point beyond themselves, they're encouraging us. They're our cheerleaders on our path. And we all have these, even if we consciously think, I don't believe in any of that. How many people grew up in homes, maybe they weren't even terribly religious, maybe they didn't believe, but on the cocktail table in the living room, there was a big family Bible. A table and a sacred text also known as an altar, P.S. Hello, like right there. Or, I believe in saints, I believe in the ancestors, I believe in any of that mess. And yet the entire hallway, just nothing but photos of dead relatives, a shrine. Oh, also known as the ancestors. So there's something about us that does reach out to these things. We may not believe the stories we've inherited about them, but we are remembering heroes and loved ones. We are creating sacred spaces. If that sacred space is nothing but a fishing boat. I've heard so many people who fish for enjoyment. I've fished for punishment as a child, but the people who did it, yeah, they were proud if they caught a big fish or whatever. But what so many of them said they loved about it is that it was quiet, it was alone time, it was contemplative. They thought they were fishing. I think they were meditating, and then sometimes would snag a fish. And so these things keep coming up. So we may reject someone's story about it, but we're all looking for quiet places, sacred spaces, honoring our heroes. These are pretty natural things. Some Hinduism or whatever may have made it very ornate and very pretty to look at and very elaborate stories. But at a very simple level, we've all got a book on the table. We've all got an altar. We've all got some pictures on a table. We've all got a shrine. We all like to get away and be quiet every once in a while and just be with the presence. We're going to find a way to do it. It may not be as ornate as Catholicism or Hinduism. It may not be as rich with history as Judaism. It may not be as philosophical as Buddhism. But these are things that are part of our human need, I think. And we are going to look for ways to connect with what is infinite and seek comfort. And spirituality is innate. So I do believe that. I think we have time maybe for one more, because otherwise we'll spend this whole time on 2 questions. So let's have a third one. Geez. Once you get Tara wound up, you're just stuck.
You better not let me ask the next question then.
Right. Oh, geez. Actually, we haven't heard. I don't know why. I think he's hung over something. We haven't heard much from Dennis. So, Dennis, why don't you give us our last question?
Last question. Okay. I got 2 good ones to choose from.
We'll choose one.
Resonates more with me, but I think I'm going to hold that one so we have lots of time to spend on that one. Okay. So the other one is, do you believe in the divinity of Jesus?
Wow, you thought they didn't have enough time. Okay.
I know. That's an easy one. Go pick another drink.
First of all, I'm a little dry. Hold on. I've got 2 answers. I've got 2 answers, actually. One is yes, and the other is no. So
that explains it. Thank you.
That's it. Let me say this. I believe in the divinity of Jesus because I believe in the allness of God. And so Jesus has to be part of God because we all are. I also believe that Jesus may have been more aware of that than a lot of us, and he may have expressed that more consistently than a lot of us. So I do believe that Jesus lived so fully into his humanity that he expressed divinity. So yes, I believe Jesus is divine because I believe you and I are divine. I just believe he, in one of 2 ways, either literally in reality did this, or in stories about him that followed him became this. Either way, it's the Jesus I've inherited. So either way, the Jesus I've inherited shows me what is possible, shows me that it's possible for me to be in constant communion with the divine, for me to know my unity with the divine, and to know that when I'm in that space, I can do amazing things. I can feed people when they're hungry. I can comfort people when they're hurting. I can help people who feel broken begin to feel more whole. I can even face disaster like Golgotha with grace and courage. And then maybe even defeat that in some unforeseeable way at the time. And so Jesus shows me what it means to live so fully into your humanity that you express divinity. So Jesus is divine the way we all are. He realized that before we did. So he's our way shower. He's our model. He's our example so that we can become more like him if we choose and if we try. So yes, I believe in the divinity of Jesus. Do I believe that he was uniquely divine, that he's the only one, that he came here just to show off how divine he was, and then he went back to his palace in the sky? No, that I do not believe. So I mean, I said it in a kind of snarky way, but it's actually 100% true. One answer is yes, and one answer is no. I don't believe that he was a Herculean sort of demigod with a deity father and a human mother, and then who does great things, and then himself is raised to the heavens and deified. That's Hercules' story. I don't think Jesus is just our version of Hercules. I think that Jesus was born the same human process the way we were all born. I do believe that Jesus historically lived. I believe he was a prophet and a hero and a rebel and a troublemaker and a badass. And I believe he was all those things with 46 chromosomes and a human mother and a human father. And I believe he is as human as we are. And I believe that we are as divine as he is. But because he was better at being human than some of us, he also showed divinity more than some of us. Now we could name a dozen other people in that camp, but Jesus is my guy. He's the one I inherited. He's the one I've spent 50 years and change studying and trying to follow, and who's motivated me and inspired me. So Jesus is my guy. That does not mean there aren't other men and women who do that for people. Jesus is my guy. And the divinity of Jesus reminds me that even if I don't show it, even if I don't feel it, even if I don't understand it, there's divinity in me also. So Jesus is my way shower. He's my example. He's my teacher. He is my archetype. So yes, Jesus is super important to me. And Jesus is divine, as we all are. But the idea that he shuttled down from heaven, show off for a little while, and then go back to some sort of imperial throne in the sky. No, that's not my understanding of Jesus, and that is certainly not the Jesus that I share with people. I can't share that Jesus. I don't know that Jesus. That is not a Jesus that I can treasure, that I can cherish. But the human Jesus, the revolutionary Jesus, the Jesus who said, "The divine and I are one," and he knew that, so we get to know that. We get to know that we are one with what is divine. And then we get to spend our whole spiritual journey trying to understand that more deeply and express that more frequently, the way the stories about him say that he did. Now, people always get polished up in stories. Even people that you've known, you might have had a contentious relationship with them, but once they died, didn't they become super perfect all at once? So I don't know if all the great things about Jesus even knew about, but it doesn't matter. The Jesus that I've inherited, the Jesus of tradition, the Jesus of faith, the Jesus of literature, that is the Jesus I have to work with. That Jesus teaches me that we're all divine and that there are ways that we can understand that more deeply and express that more consistently. So
nothing you could say could tear me away from my God.
Exactly. So that was a lot of words to say exactly what I said with just 2 words in the beginning. Yes and no. But we all have our relationships with Jesus, so other people should say other things.
I'm glad you said that about Jesus being human from a human mother and a human father, because my Catholic school, not Catholic school, but my Catholic confirmation teacher, my CCD teacher, almost had me kicked out of the class because I was saying that. And still to this day, I believed it. I was like, there's just no way. I was 13. I had already had sex education in school. I was like, this is not possible. This doesn't just happen.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I got in trouble.
And by school, you mean the bleachers, right? Oh, but anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
That was after school. So.
Those were those extracurricular activities.
Other folks, Jesus.
So, Robert, I'm curious about your understanding of Jesus, or how do you perceive Jesus coming from a Baptist tradition like myself?
Ooh, that's a loaded question for a Baptist.
But I mean, is it still the same as what you grew up with?
No, I go back to what I said earlier. Like the Jesus of my childhood is not the Jesus of my today. Jesus was very, for me, Jesus was the kid that I played with. Jesus was the kid that I hung out with as a kid. And if I think of Jesus today, he's more of the, what's up, what's happening type, and, let's get through this more than, what are you going to do for me? But, there's also the historical Jesus. There's also the Jesus of our experience and all these other things. And I think, that personal understanding the relationship with Jesus, it still goes back to being one-on-one. But as a Baptist, it was, it was a heavy Jesus. We heard more about Jesus and God than anything else. We knew about the Trinity, but it was always Jesus and God. The Trinity was that thing that was just out there. The Spirit was that thing that was just out there, but it was heavy Jesus.
What is the Course in Miracles Jesus, Margarita?
The Course in Miracles Jesus is it's a historical person too that walked the earth and, was able to express divinity, to the highest level, but not as the one-off, just as an example, so we can actually be that because we can. So that's
when the Course talks about the Son of God, it's actually talking about us, right?
It's us. It's us. This Son of God is every one of us. It uses, language that is more Christian, but it doesn't mean that. It's really talking about everyone, every person. So to me, that's exactly what it represents. It's just the model to achieve, but definitely achievable if we want to. We just have to work at it.
I love the Course's image of Jesus as the elder brother. Got here first, shows how it's done, and now we do it too. I actually love that image. Mm-hmm. What about LDS Jesus?
It's kind of like what I said before. I mean, he was always there. We had the Trinity as well. He existed. He atoned for our sins. That was a huge, huge piece of it. But it was about
that
God.
Part I reject, by the way.
Yeah, really. It was about God. It was about his Father. And, Jesus did everything on earth for God's glory so that we could return to God's kingdom. And it was, Jesus was just like a vehicle, and we don't pray to him. We respect him incredibly, but yeah, this whole praying to Jesus thing, that was new to me after leaving the Mormon church and them, God being Jesus, like, whoa, what's that?
And they really don't talk about him that much. Like when when I go to family gatherings and, stuff like that, like there's just not a lot of talk about him. And his story isn't really focused on an incredible
It's
amount.
God and Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
Right. God and Joe.
The other J.
Yeah.
The other J.
The other J.
Jesus and Joey just hanging out.
And whereas Jesus is like the elder brother or whatever for me, I will say that I several years ago enthusiastically reclaimed Lord, Jesus as Lord, though that is for me a revolutionary concept. It's not the Lord God, it's Lord over against the lordship of imperial overlords. That there's this peasant who teaches about a kingdom of God over against the kingdoms of the world. And this kingdom is something that we can embrace and live out right here, no matter what's going on around us. And so this peasant, this criminal, to call him Lord is an act of sedition. It is an act of defiance against the power structures of the world. I embrace that wholeheartedly. I often call Jesus Lord, but it's still a human Jesus for me, although human is divine if God is all there is. So, all right, I think we're ready for your roundup, Robert.
All righty then. Well, let's land the plane. And as everyone gets their final thought together, just a reminder, if you enjoy what we do here at the Sunshine Cathedral, even online, we invite you to consider making a donation to us. Just go to the Sunshine Cathedral website at sunshinecathedral.org, and you can find all the ways that you can donate and find out about other things that we have going on at the Sunshine Cathedral. All righty, Dennis, you're up. Land the plane.
No,
Tito's got you covered. He's got the card in his pocket.
Yeah. Oh no! Wait! If it's raining or if it's dark outside, this one every time we get in the car, whatever it's supposed to be, I don't know it, but it's and I'm like,
good touchy.
Okay, but it makes him feel better, so I allow him to do it. No, you mentioned a scripture, Robert, earlier, and I come back to that scripture a lot since being a part of Sunshine Cathedral, and it's, you know, the ways and the things that I used to do as a child, I put those things away. You know, when we learned there was no Santa Claus, you know, that was a childish, you know, image for me, and I put that away. The spirit of Santa Claus, okay, I get that, I understand that. So as an adult, it's not a figure, it's not a person, it's a figurehead, and it's an idea, and I embrace that idea, and I feel the same with God. We talked about that earlier. So, you know, my childish God, the Santa Claus God, is gone, and my adult God is a bigger, better, more of, again, a presence, a feeling, a love, just an all-encompassing love. So, my final thought.
Cool. Sam.
Darrell brought up a good point, and I might I might claim it. I might start praying to Jesus, a subversive troublemaker.
Or you're a Christian superhero.
Yeah, well, Tara was talking last week about how I'm so defiant and everything, and honestly, when you guys, when I, you know, after listening to several sermons about how Jesus actually just got himself in a lot of trouble. It was very subversive. That just that's my Jesus. I'm cool with that guy. Like, he's way cool. I can do that.
Jesus was a bad boy. I'm just telling you. Tito.
Gosh, I'm lost for words. I don't know.
What she said.
Yeah, what she said. No, the only thing that came to mind while you guys were talking about Jesus was that sticker. What would Jesus do? And every time I saw that sticker, like, I was like, huh? and this was like years ago when I would, and now I'm like, oh, I get it. What would Jesus do? Jesus is the example. Follow the leader, you know, do what he did.
He'd come in the temple and start flipping tables.
Yeah.
See, that's the part that I want to answer the question about what would Jesus do. Jesus will get ticked off.
It just depends. Yeah. There's many things that Jesus did.
Jesus had an attitude.
Maybe you shouldn't.
You all are giving Sam an excuse to lose her temper whenever she wants. I'm doing what Jesus did.
All right, Tara, how about it?
All right. So, well, I do want to say, Dennis, I liked your thought. And, you know, I will say that is definitely something easier said than done. Unfortunately, it's something I still work on every single day, even after, you know, finding the Sunshine Cathedral going on 6 years now. It's just, man, those things from your youth are in there and they are hard to overcome. But that's not my final thought. I was thinking about the sermon yesterday, and it was praying through the dry spells. And, you know, we talked about, Darrell, you talked about how, like, right now is kind of a dry spell with the pandemic and politics and everything that we're kind of dealing with. And it really got me thinking because, you know, for me, that's when I'm most inclined to pray, is in the, like, really hard times, or I don't know, maybe I misinterpreted dry spells, but that's when I'm most inclined to pray. And for me, when everything's going right, when I'm like getting promoted at work, when I'm losing weight, when I'm like looking, you know, like all of that, when everything's going well, that's when I forget to pray. And for me, that's my challenge and my struggle, is to just remember, even in like the really good times, to still remember God and remember my relationship with God and pray and give thanks and all of that. So that's that.
All right, Margarita.
All right.
Bring it down to the runway.
So we talked a little bit about altar. So I wanted to say we all have an altar, right? And that's where we find peace. And whatever that looks like for each one of us, we just need to seek for that more often, especially in these times where people are having so much trouble. I think that's important to just go to our altar.
All righty. Well, thanks everybody on the panel, and thanks you on the internet for joining us for this evening's Christians and Cocktails. We'll do the same thing again next Monday at 6 p.m. But for now, have a wonderful evening, and we are all about to disappear.
Disappear.
It won't be the rapture. We'll be back, but we're going to disappear for tonight.
We'll be back.
Bye.
All righty. Have a good night, everybody. Take care. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bless you.
Bye. Cheers.
Cheers.